Hi everyone, Zachary Lui here from Chi Gong. Today I'd like to talk about what Qi Gong is. Let's start by breaking down the terms of what Qi and Gong are so we have a better understanding. Qi has various definitions in the Chinese language. Some of them can be about breathing, vitality, life, atmosphere, spirit, the things you eat, even your emotions. However, when we put in a reference with Gong, meaning hard work, we get a nice stringed effect of a name being life work, or life cultivation, or life energy work, or just energy work as a simple phrase. However, do be aware of the other connotations of Qi, because as we go into the definitions of Qigong, which I'm going to break down shortly, you can start making different connections with them. So there are three categories of Qigong. First, there's the spiritual and longevity practices, then there's the health and medical practices, and then finally it's the martial arts practices. The spiritual and longevity practices are basically you are aiming to cultivate your spirit with Qigong or with energy work, because the more energy you have, the easier it is to refine your spirit. There's going to be overlaps in Chinese philosophy or philosophical thinking, which will be incorporated in these types of Qigongs for the spiritual ones, because they basically made the crux of spiritual Qigong and its philosophies and its influences on how they work. Such philosophies are Confucianism, Taoism, and Chen Buddhism. Now, each of these paradigms, as we would say, or these systems of thinking, have a different interpretation how you would use Qigong to get to a certain place of mind. The thing they do have all in common, though, is they are aiming to create and refine the spirits. They just have a different name for that word, and they may have a different path toward it. So, for example, in Taoism, you would be working toward becoming a mortal, whereas in Confucianism, you would be cultivating yourself to be a sage. In Chen Buddhism, you'd be cultivating toward becoming a Buddha or Bodhisattva. All of those have different meanings in terms of how you would interact with the world and what your philosophical thinking would be in the interactions you have within your life. In terms of longevity now, the whole point, as I was saying earlier, was when you're cultivating the spirit and you're using the energy work, you would need to store energy. So by default, by storing energy, you've already viewed yourself as cleansed and you're building up something. So when we're storing energy and building something, that's viewed as longevity practices, because then it can extend your battery life from a Chinese philosophical standpoint. In Chinese philosophy, we view the human as a battery between heaven and earth, and then there's the man plane, or human plane. In longevity practices, you're learning how to extend that battery life as much as possible by bringing in more energy. Now moving into the next category, we have medical and health Qigong. As the name connotates, it's used for medical purposes or health purposes. The concept, again, would be from, if longevity practices is to store up your energy and extend your battery life, medical and health is saying you actually have health issues, so what can we do to help you resolve them and bring you back into balance? So there's actually a key point being you actually would have, say, a physical ailment or some kind of emotional ailment that then you would need things like acupuncture or herbology for, from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint. Qigong is actually historically a main branch to the traditional Chinese medicine family, which then starts to connect with things like acupuncture. Now, in terms of its actual premise on how you would do that, there's specialized medical Qigong practices that used to be used in medical hospitals in China, and they would be targeting more of, say, your organs, such as the heart, the liver, the kidneys, liver, things like that, and they'd be working on your emotions, because we would have to get into Chinese medical theory, but there's various different reasons that you would get sick. Environmental, internal or just even mental, emotional things. In medical Qigong, we look to resolve all those types of issues. Now, as we work on that line there, then, the medical Qigong is usually prescribed to the individual, where they would need to use breath work, visualization, and physical postures to help them work on and better improve their health. However, there would be the also side tangent of a medical Qigong doctor would do Qi emission in physical healing in terms of emitting their Qi to help you as a patient if you were to do that also. Finally, there is the martial Qigong, or the Qigong Kung Fu. So, as the name connotates again, it's used mainly for Kung Fu purposes, martial defense, self-defense, things like that. Now, I could argue that all Kung Fu forms are a form of Qigong, depending how it is done, because I know for a fact, having a martial arts background, at the higher levels, you're always incorporating Qigong no matter what you're doing. Whether you're doing, say, hard styles of Kung Fu, such as, say, Shaolin Kung Fu, or Hung Gar, or those various types of Kung Fu, or the internal styles of Kung Fu being, say, Tai Chi, Xing Yi, and Bagua Zhang. With all those styles incorporated, I'm going to actually I'm going to talk about a little bit of a difference here between the two styles. Hard styles of Kung Fu generally view on external training, such as, say, punching and external ointments to help strengthen the bones and tendons, and you're using much more impact force, and you're trying to train the muscles and tendons and even skeletal system as strong as you can physically to get the best reactive time and response. Whereas in internal Kung Fu systems, you are learning to cultivate yourself from a mental standpoint first and foremost, and then trying to relax the fascia and get that instinctual reaction because your mind knows what to react to first and your body's going to follow. So the philosophies there are slightly different, but the end point is still the same. You're still using it for self-defense. Now there's specialized Qigong techniques such as iron shirt training or iron palm training, which are fairly well known in, say, Shaolin circles, where they be, say, punching a bag while applying ointments and then breathing into how to punch. And then there's things like the golden bell training, which is more connotated to, say, if you're doing Tai Chi, and that's working specifically more on organs and strengthening your organs and muscles internally more so than externals. Some common Qigong forms in martial arts, I would say, if I had to just say internal styles of Kung Fu, I like to make a parallel with them with actually doing Qigong from the get-go, because their focus is usually on energy work and breath work and meditation from the get-go while you're doing slow, low aerobic exercises. And Kung Fu, at least on the hard styles, then starts to work on your physicality. However, some forms that do heavily incorporate Qigong at the start would be, say, Tai Chi Chuan or Tai Chi, Xing Yi, and Bagua Zhang. Now, with all that said, outside all these categories, you can basically say almost every form of Qigong is going to incorporate one or two of these categories, if not all of them, just depending how you're using them. Some common forms of Qigong that are fairly well known in the world are the 8-step brocade or the Baoduan Jian. Then there's also the Yi Jin Jin, which is the muscle and tendon changing bone washing classic. And then there's the Wu Qin Qi, which is the 5 animal frolics. Qigong has been around China historically since its inception, so there are thousands of systems. If you're interested in more information about Qigong, do email me and then go to the website torontoqigong.com. I hope you all enjoyed this video.